Hey guys, welcome back to another Beyblade X video. Today we're going to be talking about ratchets, why they're important, what the difference is, and how you can improve your combo building by understanding how ratchets work and the difference between them. So we're mostly going to be going over ratchets that are currently available in Wave 1 of Hasbro's Beyblade X. There are some others that are available from Takara Tomy, including one-sided ratchets and the 70 height ratchets. Two-sided ratchets are also coming. However, sort of the knowledge in this video and how it applies to combo building will apply to future ratchets as well. And as always, if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. So what is a ratchet? Aside from being a core component of a Beyblade in terms of being able to put it together, it also functions as one of the points that can create a burst in Beyblade X. So for right spin, it sets in and rotates to the left, and the way it bursts is the same way that you put it together. Basically, it gets hit to the right, shifts that ratchet to the right, and it creates a separation. The main things that you're looking at when you're talking about building combos with ratchets is the height and then the amount of sides on the ratchets. So the three-sided ratchets, for example, are extremely good, and the best way to be able to tell the height apart is the 80 height ratchets will have a little lip on them. If you set them on a flat surface, you'll be able to tell the height apart a little easier, but if you look for that lip, that'll definitely make it easier. It gets a little more complicated once 70 height gets introduced, because there's not an easy way to distinguish them unless you set them side by side, but you don't have to worry about that for a little while at least. So the biggest thing that we're looking at when we're talking about ratchets is typically how easy it bursts. So the four-sided ratchet, unfortunately, is the most burst prone. 960, which is the one on the right, comes with Soar Phoenix, is probably the least likely to burst. You may be wondering what makes a ratchet good or bad, and the biggest thing, again, is how easy it bursts, and height and the amount of sides sort of dictates that. So if you've got a shorter combo, it's much easier to tilt and hit the opponent's ratchet, whereas if you're sitting on a higher height, like 80, you have to have a much more aggressive tilt in order to get underneath the blade. So generally speaking, in the current meta, most people prefer lower height ratchets. It's just harder to make contact with them. It also brings down the center of gravity, so they're a little more stable. And the reason that the four-sided ratchets are worse is just because of the way that they're designed. It's much easier to hit the sort of nubs on those four-sided ratchets in order to make them burst. The five-sided ratchet you would think would burst fairly easy as well. But because those nubs are wider and they're sort of closer to each other, it's much harder to burst those as well. So typically most people prefer three-sided, five-sided, and the nine-sided ratchet. The other thing that can sort of dictate which ratchets you want to use can be your specific build, if you're building attack or stamina or defense, because some weigh more than others as well, and that's important when you're trying to build a defense or stamina combo. You may see a lot of people on YouTube or in the competitive community using scales. Definitely not a necessary tool, but it can be useful when trying to optimize combos. You can use these for blades, ratchets, and bits in order to find the heaviest possible combo, or let's say the lightest possible combo. So let's say you have a bunch of sword drives. You can weigh them all and use the heaviest. Same thing applies to ratchets as well. Let's say you have one particular heavy 360 ratchet, you may want to use that. Or you may want to use a higher height ratchet because of the extra weight, because of the extra material that it takes in order to create a higher ratchet. One of the other drawbacks to sort of higher height ratchets is it makes you much more susceptible to upper attackers like Shark, being able to sort of knock you into the pockets or out of the extreme zone. The taller you are, the easier it is to sort of hit you upwards. On the flip side of that, you've got sort of ratchet attackers like Viper, whose blades sort of hang low, make it a little easier to hit ratchets. So if you're sitting on a higher height ratchet like 80, it makes it much easier to make contact with those ratchets and try to get a burst. Of course, what your opponent's using is also going to dictate sort of how your combos perform as well. So if somebody else is running lower height as well, it may be a little harder to hit those ratchets and get those bursts. So something to keep in mind when you're sort of planning what your deck's going to be. So, for example, if somebody's using a really wide blade like Wizard Rod, which by the way isn't out in North America yet, and using 960, it's going to make it much harder to make contact with that ratchet to burst it. It's not impossible, you can still do it, but in general, it's going to be much harder to do against a wider blade on 960 than it is on something that's taller on, like, let's say 480 or even 380 or 580. But with all of that being said, the main thing that I recommend people do is sit down and test as many combos as you can, put together everything, test things thoroughly, see what works and what doesn't work for you. Maybe you'll find a combo that people haven't found that works really well. If you have, let me know down in the comments below. If this video helped, let me know in the comments as well. Hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already for future Beyblade content, and I will see you all in the next one. And if you guys want to help support the channel, feel free to check out my Patreon linked down below, where for a limited time you can get these holographic Max chip stickers. This is my cat that you occasionally see in the end screens of my videos. Anyway, thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next one.